Hey guys, guess what I just did? I registered for classes, so now I have this pretty good looking schedule. I will be taking a general chemistry class for all 3 quarters of my freshman year. I'll be taking a calculus class for at least my first 2 quarters, and a reading cultures class for at least my first 2 quarters. So I'm pretty excited about that, especially the reading cultures class. I think it sounds really interesting. It is kind of about taking all kind of mediums of artwork, be it literature, film, contemporary works, old works, visual art, music, anything like that, from all different cultures across the world and all different time periods, and kind of comparing them and doing a cultural analysis to somewhat improve cultural literacy. So that to me seems really, really fascinating. I was caught between that and a media aesthetics course, which was looking at how media or artwork really is interpreted differently depending on the medium it's presented in, which is also very interesting to me. But I ended up with reading cultures, and I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's going to be a really cool course to have, especially side by side with Chem and Calc, which are both obviously much more gritty classes, I would say. Tuesday is going to be hard for me. I have class straight from 9 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening with my reading cultures, my Chem tutorial, my Calc tutorial, and then a Chem lab. But I think, it's better on Tuesday than on Friday, and I think that anyone who's starting out college with a hard science, especially Chem, they're going to have a day with the lab that's just going to seem really, really long. So I think having that balance between, days with fewer classes and more time off, and then the days that are maybe a little harder and more tiring, I think it's going to be good. I'm going to have enough time to kind of explore some other things, do all the work I need to do, but also get all the courses in that I need to. And I think that although it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, my first quarter of college I'm going to take both Chem and Calc, something like that, I think it's really important to kind of think about your goals and what at this point you would like to do, and kind of set yourself up for that, because you can always change your mind. But at least at UChicago there are general ed requirements, so if nothing else, I'm fulfilling those. And so if I decide suddenly that I want to be an art history major, I can still do that. I can still change. I have not declared a major, and even once you have, you can still change. But I would say pick what major you're interested in that is hardest to fulfill the requirements for, and if you think there's a chance you will pursue that, take those classes freshman year and get them out of the way. Because if nothing else, you'll have had that experience, and in taking those classes you may realize that that's not something you want to do, and that's also important to know. So even though it does make me nervous to kind of be jumping back into school, especially after a gap year with what are known to be 2 hard classes, I think it's a good way to find out what you really want to do, and also just get some experience, and if nothing else, fulfill your general ed requirements and move on to take other electives or other classes, other major requirements that you are interested in. So I think the biggest thing that came to mind for me, at least, when I thought O week, was making friends, becoming a student, actually starting university, and definitely joining clubs. Those are the 3 big things that came to mind for me. So what was really great was earlier in the week on Monday we had what was called our convocation. So it was when we officially became students of UChicago as a class. So we had a speech in Rockefeller Chapel, and then we walked out and walked all the way through the campus. There was a march, there was a parade, there were bagpipes playing, all the people's families, and older students kind of from all of our different houses were on the sides yelling and cheering for us. very kind of inspiring environment. It was definitely very high energy, and I had a really good time because I already had like what I would say is a small friend group, and we were just having a good time, kind of soaking in being the center of attention just for a little bit before the year started, and we were covered in books and paper and pencils and tape and whatever else happens at college. I mean, we all know that no partying of any kind happens at university, so there were definitely no parties during this first week at all. At all. But hypothetically, if there had been parties, I'm sure they would have been very fun. And in terms of friends, I actually made friends very, very easily. I think that might just be part of my personality. I'm kind of like that extremely open, kind of overly open person who has like a very strong personality and is kind of so open and like sometimes awkward and all of that it makes other people feel comfortable with also being themselves. So I would say that sometimes that can actually be a perk, especially at the beginning of college, because if you're loud and you're not obnoxious, because that's just annoying and obnoxious. People here are much less like uptight with who they're friends with than I experienced in high school. So I haven't really experienced any kind of cliquiness. People are just friends, which is really great. But I know that there are some shyer people out there who like maybe have a more difficult time. But what I would say, what really helped me at the very beginning, in the very first few days, was my roommate. If you have a roommate, you basically have, like at least for the first couple of weeks, an automatic friend. Like you guys are both in the same boat, you're going through the same things, you're in the same room, you're living together, you're eating together, you've got to talk. And especially with my roommate, she was here for a pre-orientation program, so I kind of like fit right in with this friend group she had already created. And that was kind of cool because not only am I now friends with people in my own house, I'm also friends with people she was friends with from other dorms, and it's kind of like cast my net a little wider. People say the friends you make in the first weeks of college aren't necessarily the friends you'll stay with throughout that time. But at least for me, like I don't feel like I'm friends with these people just for the sake of being friends with them. I feel like I'm actually very compatible with them and we have a great time. So there are some times in the last few days that we didn't feel like going to the college parties that definitely don't happen. We kind of just felt like hanging out in our room and like talking and drinking tea and, watching movies and doing stuff like that. And I feel like that's a good place to be after the first week, that you have people you're really comfortable with. You don't always feel like you have to go out. You don't always feel like you have to go to an event. Once you have kind of a group, you guys can just chill, and it's a nice feeling to have, and that kind of security I think is something that's going to be very important for me going in to classes this week. So in terms of clubs, I was actually somewhat disappointed because I thought the RSO fair, which is I think resident student organizations, don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. RSO is basically a fancy 3-word word for club. I thought there was a fair for all of those RSOs on this past Friday, but apparently it's next Friday. So I can't really speak as much to that, how overwhelming that was, how underwhelming that was, how interesting that was, or anything, because it hasn't happened yet. There were like a few little, stands set up here and there, or like single group events that happen throughout the week, but I think UChicago has over 450 student clubs, so I would say I definitely have not experienced them all, even close. I did find a couple cool ones. There was a club that specialized in like nonprofit management, and you actually like work with a nonprofit in the community, and that's something I'm really interested in doing as a career, so that was very interesting for me. You can also actually take a class in nonprofit management with their club as an elective, so that's something I'm thinking about for future quarters. I also found an African diaspora club, which is also very interesting for me, given where I did my gap year, so just talking and learning all about different African cultures and putting on a fashion show and doing things like that, which can keep me connected to the cultures I was a part of and the cultures I experienced in a much more kind of real way than taking like maybe a class on African history or something like that. So those two I was very excited to find. And of course, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a ballet dancer, a modern dancer, contemporary, have been since I was very small. I had been out of that for a year because of my gap year, but I'm kind of looking to get back into that slowly. So I had found some dance groups on campus, U Ballet, which is the University Ballet of Chicago, which I'm pretty excited about. They have 3 free classes a week. Don't have to be a part of the company yet if that seems like too much with my schedule, but that's just something that's very cool, and I think very few universities actually have, is a very high-level ballet program or club of some sort. Then there are a couple that I'm really, really excited about, completely new styles of dance for me. One is competitive ballroom. I don't know about you guys, but I think ballroom is just the epitome of awesome, and I think, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire are just the height of cool. They were cool then, they're still cool now, at least to me, so that is something I'm very interested in. They teach a ton of different styles of dance, and there's actually a team that kind of goes around and competes throughout the country. And what's great is that you don't have to have any experience, and I'm completely inexperienced, so this is going to be a very interesting, let's try that again. I'm completely inexperienced, so it would be a very good opportunity for me to become more experienced and just have a great time, honestly. Like, who can dance, like foxtrot without smiling? I don't think I can. I'm going to try things that I've never had the opportunity to try before. I'm literally going to sign up for everything that catches my eye at all, and then kind of drop them throughout the year as I see what I'm most interested in. I think a week overall has been an amazing experience for me. I'm really excited, about my classes, about my friends, about just being on such a gorgeous campus, having a great room, kind of finding my own path here. It's an exciting thing, and I think I can't necessarily speak to the academic part of it yet, and especially coming from a gap year, it's going to be really interesting for me to see how that goes. But right now, all I can say is if the year is anything like this week has been, I would say that UChicago is definitely not the place where fun comes to die.